I'd like to call this regular city council meeting of March 25th, 2013 to order. And we'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call shows all departments are represented. Approval of the agenda. Mr. Murphy, any additions or deletions?
Yes, I'd like to add two things. Number 3 would be appointment to the Housing Commission. Number 4 would be the appointment of the clerk treasurer.
I'll move the agenda as amended.
I'll support.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Review the minutes of March 11. Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hate to do this because I'm asking to amend what I amended the last meeting. And on the very first approval of minutes, Councilman Waddell stated the minutes should reflect Mayor Wallace was absent with notice, period.
With notice in what?
Period. So then, because the question was asked, what's that mean? And I said that we knew where you were, that you were on vacation and out of the country.
And working.
And working, whatever. But we knew where you were. You weren't just absent.
Yeah, we can amend it again if it doesn't get through. I move the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Public comment at this time. If anybody wishes to speak on an item not listed on the agenda, they may do so.
Put your papers in.
Okay, seeing nobody, we can move on to old business, and we have none. New business, the East Lake Street Design Agreement. Mr. Murphy.
At our last meeting, the council approved using tri-party money for the East Lake Street project, which is a mill and overlay from Pontiac Trail to the railroad east to the railroad tracks. The cost for design and to bid it out and topo and all that good stuff would be $20,800. I'm asking that you approve that so we can get that going and get it bid out so we can still do it this construction year. And actually, I'm trying to get more money so we can do more of Lake Street, which would go to the west, probably up to the city limits, and I should find out if we'll be able to get that tomorrow afternoon. I have to go to a Livingston County, I'm sorry, a Huron Valley Federal Aid Committee meeting tomorrow.
Mr. Mayor.
Mike.
Dave, would that affect the preliminary engineering amounts if we went further?
Yes, but they can still get this going, but I should know tomorrow, and then I'll bring it back to you. We've kind of broken it up into 3 sections, though. So it would be Pontiac Trail east to the railroad tracks. That's one section. That's what we were talking about this evening. The intersection of Pontiac Trail and Lake Street, and then Lake Street from Pontiac Trail west to the city limits, or Dixboro Road. That's what I'm trying to get the money for, those other 2 sections, and hopefully I'll be able to get some to cover perhaps this section as well. But I'll have a better idea tomorrow afternoon.
Having it broke into 3 pieces, is it in the event that you have to delete one of them, we still have some possibilities?
Yes, exactly. And I am bringing our county rep and the Green Oak County rep with me tomorrow, so hopefully that should give us a little bit of an edge.
And if I can interject, the whole goal is that 10 Mile will be redone from Rushton Road all the way to the railroad tracks.
Yes, sir. The director of the Livingston County Road Commission told me that he was going to be doing from Rushton to our city limits or Dixboro Road, so I thought we could just carry on then, and that would make a nice addition to our project.
Well, I'll make the motion then that we approve the design services in the amount of $20,800 for East Lake Street from Lafayette to the railroad tracks.
I'll second.
I'd like to ask, should that be contingent on a change with Livingston?
No, I don't think so. I
Okay.
think this project needs to go regardless, and that's what we were going to utilize the tri-party money for. So if I can get the money for the other sections, that'll be gravy, if you will.
Mike Crane, their head maintenance guy, did volunteer that to Dave, that, you know, you're in the Huron Valley area, you actually qualify for some of these funds.
Yeah.
And so that's what Dave's trying to seek down tomorrow. Which would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, and did we get a second? Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay. Government access cable channel. Glenn, you asked to have that put on for discussion.
Okay. I just wanted to say I'm excited about the idea of the city taking responsibility for our cable channel and the opportunities this holds in improving the content and quality of our cable cast. This was a pretty interesting job researching to gather up bylaws of neighboring communities and things that would assist, so we're not starting from zero. We have essentially template documents that we can tweak to suit exactly our needs. The help of the people that I had talked to was really terrific. I mean, everybody was more than happy to extend whatever information and advice they might have had, and that was really well received. Essentially, there seems to be two basic approaches that we could take that make the most sense. One would be completely independent and take it upon ourselves to pretty much own the entire project. You know, create the commission, set up our own rules, be responsible to develop our own content, the capital improvements that would be necessary to enrich our broadcasts or cable casts, pretty much the whole nut. And the other way that would make some sense is, and I don't know, I haven't talked to them directly about the idea of this, but Southwest Oakland Cable Commission, which is affiliated with Novi, Farmington, and Farmington Hills, apparently Debbie had a conversation with them and had suggested that conversation led to advice that maybe we would talk to the mayor of Farmington. He, I think, is in charge of the Southwest Oakland Cable Commission, and find out what it would take to be involved, what restrictions there might end up being, what opportunities there might end up being. So, I mean, obviously, I'm no expert at this. This is the very onset of trying to discover what lies out there. But so far, it's been very enriching. And between that and conversations with local people that have extended their skill sets to assist us with moving forward and accomplishing the intended goal, I have a great deal of hope that this is going to work out quickly, effectively, and quickly show promise and a reason for making the transition for the city to assume responsibility for its own asset. So I do have some handouts that I have to decide which set of glasses to use here. Okay. Hang on. Rich Perry, who does the 3-minute video business for South Lyon, that's conducted at the theater I had asked him if he could kind of do a synopsis of what types of capital improvements would be necessary to move us ahead, and he had sort of structured it in a couple of phases that I was really grateful for. And none of them are really too onerous. Obviously, with our franchise fees, you know, we do have a budget that we can pull from. But the idea of creating a commission for South Lyon, I figured that we would do it much the same way that we did the Arts Commission, between our website and asking South Lyon Herald, you know, in their story. Obviously, they're not unaccustomed to passing along this type of thing, that we're looking for applications for people that have an interest in becoming members of the Cable Commission, and to come to City Hall and make an application, and at some latter date we'll gather to assess the candidates and decide who would be best suited to accomplish our goals. The applicants, I think at least, that the applicants should be city residents, because this is a city asset. So the commissioners should be recommended and approved by city council. So that takes the onus off. It just opens up the architecture for it to be completely dispassionate. And you know, I had seen examples of both 5 and 7 member boards, so that's something that we could have plenty of discussions about. Obviously, the terms would be just like any of the commissions. The initial term would end up having to be rolled out, whether it's 5 or 7, in they'd all be either 2 or 3 year terms. Probably 3 years makes the most sense, but rolled out so that the whole body isn't transitioning on the same anniversary date. The responsibilities of the commission would end up being to create the bylaws, and as I stated, I have pulled plenty of examples, and I mean, that's a pretty rich environment to be able to pull templates from. To determine the strategies for the creation and the scheduling of content. Some of these, the scheduling aspect of it would come into play once we had gotten hardware that would allow us to be able to program a schedule where essentially we set from the library that we create, and then we could end up actually running a scroll or like a TV guide page that would inform residents about what time any given program that they were looking for might be on. You know, to recommend, the commission would recommend the capital improvements needed, approve the content of the cable casting. As a government access channel, we have complete control over what goes on our channel, unlike a public access channel where you really are limited as to, you know, if somebody supplies something and it isn't completely over the top, you have an obligation to show it. So with government access, especially at the onset, we have, you know, a very small library to begin with. So that'll allow the commission to determine what types of content they want to try to focus on to fill in more of their schedule. Excuse me. Determine strategies for advertising and promoting the channel itself. You know, making our residents aware that we have this asset. I mean, it's been around an awful long time. It still, I would venture to say, has relatively low penetration as far as a strong following. So, you know, do what we could to enhance that. And the commission would also act as the liaison between complaints of residents and the cable providers. So, and with AT&T building in the community, as well as the existing WOW cable channel, you know, I will say, and I can only speak anecdotally, but from the days of Horizon, when it was a chronic complaint festival to the days of WOW. WOW seems to have brought a significantly higher quality program to the city, so I think we can all be happy to see that. But there's still, you know, it's inevitable that there are still issues, whether it's quality, outages, even cost of cable. So there's a couple of gentlemen, both Rich Perry and Rich Zucchini, had both showed up at the meeting, and I just thought it might end up being helpful if you guys could set up and kind of chime in as to some of what the conversations that we've had in the past and what you see as the promise of what our cable channel can hold. Yeah, either one.
Hi, I'm Richard Zucchini, and essentially the way...
Sir, please just name your name and address, actually.
I'm sorry, Richard Zucchini and 516 East Lake Street.
Okay.
And Glenn had approached me on a concept years ago about the idea of cable. He knew I was involved in television and video production. And so he had just brainstormed a couple ideas, concepts, and essentially we furthered the conversation just recently. And the only thing that I was left with was the fact that right now is an absolute prime time for almost anyone to get involved in really pushing forward, because equipment is so inexpensive. The way things are streamlined. Just 5 years ago, it was $36 per tape to air something on any kind of cable station. And today, it's like all done via digital, so it's absolutely no expense. Once the initial investment, I'm going to go through the way I sort of see it. If we had a full studio, you can have a full studio with 3 or 4 remote cameras that can act as studio cameras. That's a totally unique thing. They all only have to be gen-locked, which means that they would essentially be able to be post-production, edited afterwards, very streamlined, very direct, very cost-effective for the city. And I don't know if this is exactly where you want me to go with this, but these are some of the thoughts that I had. You don't even need a switcher anymore. A switcher can range anywhere from $2,300 to $15,000, and that is totally optional if you have gen-lock cameras. You need microphones, you need a teleprompter. Teleprompters, so that if someone really has a nice script, they would like to speak right directly into the camera, speak freely without any kind of interruption, they would have a nice teleprompter, which is very cost effective also. You need Final Cut Pro or Avid, which is a industrial standard type of editing system. Avid 10 years ago was about $40,000 to buy a single station, and right now you can buy it for $300. So Final Cut Pro has really created a strong competition for them to drive down the price. You need some simple lights, good lighting, so that people can do some effective creative lighting effects on folks. You need copyright-free music, so that you can then generate music in post-production without having to incur expenses there. And then you need an output device, something that's going to tie into whatever provider that you decide to go with. The way I see it, I'm not a very technical person. I'm more of a creative person, in the sense that if there's a story, if there's anything out there, I can create a story out of it. I can generate some kind of program, and I see that in South Lyon we have a lot of potential for a lot of programs, a lot of things that can fill the air. I remember seeing a show a long time ago when I first moved to South Lyon, and it was a very, very simple story of going around videotaping Christmas lights and doing a voiceover narration. I thought it was very charming, thought it was very sweet. Those are the types of things that people do buy into. However, we do have a lot of very rich things that are historical to our city. We've got a lot of very active members, whether they're historical reference or whether they're youth that are achieving great things. And all these are great stories that people would like to see. Government access, I think that there's a lot of positive things that relate directly to that. We've got students that are achieving great things, great opportunities to tell a lot of different stories. These do not cost any type of money whatsoever. It's just merely time. In addition, when you create a channel, you do have access to a lot of PSAs, public service announcements, things that are national public service announcements that can also go into the programming. And then you can also have pages flying by, and I think you were referencing this, Glenn, where different activities, different things that are going on in the community can be put up as a single page if it's not a full-blown story. We have our Pumpkin Fest. That should be documented. Our parades should be documented. The events that happen for the vets, these are things that are very, very strong. We have a strong heritage here that I think are really important things that are going without being documented. And all these things can be done very inexpensively. They can be done and stored in a way that will not cost our city very much money whatsoever. That's my take on it. I've got a lot of input, a lot more input, but from a cost standpoint, B&H is one of the cheapest places, but if you put out a bid, you can get a service agreement from someone that would come in for 3 years and totally service any of the equipment you need. One computer can handle the teleprompter, the post-production editing, and it can also handle any other type of generation of graphics and things of that nature. That's my perspective, but at the same time, I think any moment that we waste is lost. I mean, we've got a lot of kids. Good example is Sunday evening, this is at Dearborn, but Sunday evening they had Legends and Hall of Fame folks that came in from all over the United States that had done a lot of different things for Dearborn. It wasn't documented. They didn't document that event. And it was kind of a shame because one of the guest speakers that came in unexpectedly was Rick Schneider, and the thing of it is, it's an event. It's something that happens all the time, and it's very simple, very easy. The last point that I want to bring up is that in addition to the cost effectiveness, we also have not only television, but we also have the internet where people can access, even if they don't have WOW or they don't have Comcast or some channel that is specific to us, they can access these things on a particular internet site. So that's a lot of possibility, a lot of things that would be very cost effective for our city. So that's my point.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Hello, Rich Perry, 875 Westbrook Drive, South Lyon. Some of my themes compared to Richard's themes are a little lower. I used to sell Avids. Yeah, they're like 100,000. Yeah, today you can get editing equipment extremely cheap. As a matter of fact, the computers we all have now have editing systems on them. So as it relates to the overall channel, I think that there are some real improvements that can be made and involving a lot of the community. You mentioned Farmington's system. They have a great system. Canton has a great system. Shelby Township has a great system. There's a lot of systems around the community that are really engaged the community, the residents. And I think the overall theme for me at least is you have a better you have a good place to share information. You have a more engaged community base. You can promote volunteerism. It's just a more interactive community with a channel like this. As it relates to content, as I've expressed to Councilman Kivel, I'm happy to come in and help train staff or students or other community volunteers on how to do this. In my book, this is easy. Content's easy. For people who have not produced video before, it might be a complete mystery. But as Richard was saying, today it's a lot simpler. As you know, we all have a video production department in our pocket with our phones. Okay, you know, producing video today and just simple content is really easy to do and very inexpensive. As it relates to the actual equipment, I take a much different route than you took, Richard. You already have a television studio in here. Okay, you have 3 or 4 cameras here. You got a switcher back there. Interviews and meetings like this are the cheapest thing you can do. It takes the least amount of manpower, and you can generate a lot of content from it. Okay. If you want to do an interview show, you want to do 5 minutes with the mayor in this room, you can knock that out anytime. I recommended to, as Mr. Kivel said, a couple of different phases. Phase 1 is the basic equipment. It's like a couple $1,000s worth of equipment. You got a good camera, good tripod, you need a microphone. That's about all you need to get started with building some content. At that point, you will need a digital video server. You can get something like that anywhere from $5,000 up to as high as you want to go. My recommendation was around the $10,000 to $15,000 mark. That would be phase 2, but you need to build an inventory of content first. And as Richard was saying, there's a lot of opportunities for content. The community center that we're working on now, everybody in the community is interested in what's going on there. Everybody would like daily updates, you know, as much as we could get. You know, that's not going to happen, but, you know, that's something that's ongoing. Any ongoing project in the community can be easily documented and get on and put on the channel quite easily. I worked in government and public access for several years. I'm familiar with the rules and regulations of when I was in then and now. I understand that you know how it all works. I understand how to get it on the channel. So, like I said when I started, I am offering my services to help you guys make this happen. Okay.
You know, when we, at the onset of your and I discussion, you had mentioned that you have relationships with people in both high schools.
Right.
You know, we've always had been told that it was difficult to try to get those labs at the high schools that we had given. If you remember, we used to give 20% of our franchise fees to the school, thinking that it would be an incubator for kids to have a desire to come to the city, produce our council meetings, planning commission meetings. You know, we would end up getting some kickback from our investment in those labs, which never came to fruition. Rich has said that he's got a relationship with both schools and the teachers of those video labs. And he doesn't find it difficult at all to find people that will, like the planning commission meetings. You know, there's plenty of opportunities for people to see firsthand what's going on rather than having to get in their car and come down here. You can actually watch it on either the cable channel or, I mean, as you know, as we develop our website, that streaming video on the website, now that we've invested a little bit of time and we're using YouTube on there, I mean, that whole system seems to be very fluid, very quick and easy, and doesn't eat up an awful lot of storage space. So
My point with the schools was, by the way, we're using Vimeo, not YouTube. Vimeo is the name of the service that you're using for your council.
You're right, we had been using Vimeo, and it actually
Switched.
was quite cumbersome and didn't put out as good a product
Oh, you
as the
switched.
YouTube is.
Okay.
So, yeah, so, I mean, that was a quick, easy transition,
Yeah.
so.
As it relates to working with students, my opinion is if you go to the schools and say, hey, Southline District Schools, this is the partnership we want to build. Here's the plan we want to put together. That's kind of big, okay? And then there's layers of people and tape and all that sort of stuff. When I worked in cable, we didn't go at that route. We went directly to the students. And we found interest in, you know, this community's got a lot of students who have an interest in visual arts. And it's not difficult to find people who are interested in helping out and interested in putting together videos and getting experience, you know, in a community cable broadcast center. So I think that's a route you can take. I think it'd be much more effective that way. I've had experience in that aspect. It's been very successful. There are a lot of people who are interested in doing this stuff. They may not know what's happening here. They may not know about this channel. They may not know of the opportunities to put content on a channel. So, okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor.
Mike?
You know, I just have some basic questions regarding, for instance, what are other communities doing? Are other communities using a commission to oversee?
Every one of them, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How are they funding it? Are they funding?
Franchise fees.
Franchise fees?
Yeah, and typically their bylaws will determine what percentage of the franchise fees are obligated to roll back into content or production, whatever, you know, capital investment in the stations themselves. So, I mean, as I said, there's a host of information how all these commissions are structured, but I'm not aware of any of them that work without it except for ours.
Okay. Are they city employees that are actually the employees of the, that are doing the production?
That seems to vary site to site. You know, the Southwest Oakland County thing, I mean, that's a big professional outfit. Meridian County, Meridian Township, you know, I just kind of scrambling around looking at stuff. They've won a whole bunch of awards, and, you know, they have big facilities that, you know, have studios in them and that, so, you know, that doesn't end up going inexpensively, so.
And then my biggest pet peeve, accessibility to other cable providers. I mean, I know, for instance, we have the cable agreement with WOW for the government channel access, but a lot of us don't use WOW for one reason or another.
Right.
And I know when we looked into it 3 years ago with like AT&T UVerse, didn't they want 20,000?
Yeah, they
or
have their own
something?
system, and it was, I think, 10 to 20,000 at that time. I don't know what it is today.
Was
But our
that-
lack of competition as far as cable providers isn't a function of the city. It's we're not a large enough market to
Oh, no, I-
justify stringing cable, you know.
Oh, I understand that. I'm just trying to figure out ways of getting a greater accessibility to a larger percentage of our residents.
Right,
'Cause
and the
right-
Dish thing is complicated because we wouldn't have a PEG channel on Dish, so.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Aaron?
This might be a question for Lisa. Did we try to get advertisers on the website? Did we try and do that for any of the pages?
I don't think so.
Okay, I thought I had heard that we did that at one time.
If we did, it was quite a while ago. We haven't recently.
Okay. Just a comment to Glenn, I wish I had this information in my packet ahead of time. And I mean, when you started talking, it was just, I didn't even know where you started. I wish I had had something to read
Okay.
ahead of time. And
Well, I mean, this isn't like a thumbs up or down at this moment. This
no,
is the
but I mean, I
beginning of
still,
the conversation.
but I still
so.
like to be part of the conversation because I sit on the council. So I just would like to,
Well, that's why I printed that stuff out.
but I would have liked it in my packet when I got my packet, just so I could educate myself, so I could maybe make a comment.
Okay.
Okay? If you're gonna put something on the agenda, I just like supporting information, that's all. I'm done.
Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The one question I have, and perhaps these gentlemen could answer it for us, or if not, Glenn. If we had all of using the studio and using all the different content that might be developed, as well as the content that we currently have, the games that football games that we know are very important to our community, can we also stream those onto our website, or are we limited to only the PEG channel on the television?
You can do both. There are systems where you can, basically, it's like a dual band system. You ingest your content, plays out to the channel, plays out to the web. Okay. So that's equipment that is available out there. Just have to research it. We looked at it, actually, Mr. Murphy, a couple years ago. We looked at something like that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wouldn't that seem, though, to be a more logical approach, since we have some people using WOW, some people using
That's a good
UVerse,
point.
some Dish, some
Yeah.
all the other places?
Yeah, and several communities do that. I know Canton does that. Farmington does that as well. Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, why just have it on Channel 19 and Mike and anyone else who has Dish or doesn't have cable?
Direct, yeah. So, and something I wouldn't hold you to, what would happen to the cost?
If you wanted to
over and
stream it
above
both.
just the PEG channel,
Yeah, not too much. Like I said, there's equipment out there that are active digital video servers. And again, you got one spigot that goes out to your modulator here to push out to 19. Another spigot that goes out to the big bad internet.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Well, I'd like to, at the very least, at the next meeting, I mean, have you digest some of this information and have a follow-up. Then you can read that.
Don't be a smartass.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Put that in the minutes too, Lisa.
Okay.
I suppose it behooves that I say a few things, since my involvement since we just started our 31st year with SLC TV. I liked your idea about the Christmas lights. It is something that I've done probably 10 to 15 times over the years. We've done that particular program. The history talks, we've got some from people that are long gone now. We're very pleased. We do have them in our archives. We have quite a pile of archives, actually. And of course, the parades, the document the Pumpkin Fest. Not only do we have documented all Pumpkin Fest parades, but we also did the vendors, the arts and crafts shows, the kiddie events. Really featured a lot of babies and baby carriages and different things. It's more than just doing the parade. We do have the people involved and love to run home and watch themselves on their own TV. More of a big deal in the first 20 to 25 years, obviously, because we didn't have the phones with the video and this kind of thing. But it was really a big deal to see themselves on their own television. And so that's always been our general theme. Get as many faces as we can get on and make the community happy with that. And our motto has always been stated, and we say it on the air, is we don't claim to be big time. We have a good time. Get the kids on, get the people on. And as far as exposure outside of the community, for at least the last 20 years, we've been on Comcast, and we reach 33 communities in the metro area with the programming that we've sent them and paid for. We had to pay for airtime. Over 500,000 televisions had an opportunity on Saturday afternoon, Channel 90, to see some of the things that Southline offers, and made them aware Southline exists. And if you look, there's very little of that going on, even on Comcast, outside of what we do. Your concept of, I like a lot of your concepts. If you can get those people to volunteer to do this and that, if you can get them consistently. We did do students programs as far as with the high school. We worked with them in the past. We'll get a year or so out of them, and then they disappeared. They took interest in boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever. They just went on and did their high school thing. So it was hard to keep a consistent program going in that regards. We had a huge hit for years when we had Video Bingo. And that was a live program that we did. And we gave away gifts and items from merchants in the town, and they just loved it. Some people were wowed and shocked when the item was delivered to them 10 minutes after the program was over. They just assumed we were coming out of Southfield or something, I don't know, but we've had some good times with that. And then you mentioned these other communities. They have virtually hundreds of thousands of people in them versus what we have here. We have in our town 11,000 people. We have 5,200 homes or apartments or what have you that could have access to cable. Currently only 2,400 are using it. And I really honestly believe that a lot of them are hanging on for things like our meetings, the football. And it's more than football. We've done hockey and basketball. One year, our girls' basketball team went to the Final Four, and you know darn well we were there the whole ride. That was a wonderful time, too. When something's hot, you go with it. It's always, that's the interest when you wonder about interest for your local channel. So, I guess I'm saying is, if we could work out something, I'd love to see it work out, but don't change the programming we've been doing. And I'm now going to take a couple minutes to go over what we have a contract with the city. It was reviewed and redone in 1999, when at that time I was not a city official. The people chose to elect me after that. SLC TV is a profit-making organization engaged primarily in the business of management, promotion, production of local cable programming. The City of Southline agreed to provide its dedicated local channel and use of its broadcasting equipment in exchange for production and cable casting of municipal programs. And that was, of course, some VHS cameras. They had a couple of them way back in the beginning. And of course, you know, there has been an evolution, and it's a wonderful evolution in how the cameras work and so forth. SLC will provide the staff that will operate the station and the personnel necessary to operate and produce and broadcast local events and programs. And they were the responsibility of SLC TV. Equipment, SLC TV provides all equipment necessary to produce and broadcast programs except the following: a modulator, character generator, program generator. Other city video equipment that we still had, we hung on to it. Anytime people wanted to use it and go make a program, we allowed that. And we had a few do that. The interest, you know, waned quickly when you find out it takes, of course, back then editing is a little more difficult. And, but again, that was something we've always had. That's why I have a pile of cameras in there right now. Also in that year of 1999, we were moved into this office space right here from a basement, a home basement here, actually just down the street from here. Because the cable company asked us, please, will you move over to the City Hall, because at that time the only optic line available was in the City Hall. We can give you a better picture. So henceforth, that's why you see us sitting in the city, like closet, if you want to call it that. And that's why our equipment sits there. It was not something we wanted to do, but it made sense. So that's why we're sitting there, and people assume that the city owns all that. No, they don't. The major source of revenue for operation of SLC TV will be the sale of advertising, as agreed by the city. The City of South Lyon shall authorize SLC as the exclusive operator of the channel that it was dedicated to it. It is expressly understood that SLC TV is an independent organization and is in no way associated with the City of South Lyon and no authority to represent or act or on behalf of the city. Again, the city covers their behind like they should. Any citizen or organization having an objection to or a dispute to the relative to the operation of the channel shall first appeal to SLC TV. In the event of a satisfactory solution is not achieved, the grievance may be submitted to the city manager of the City of South Lyon. So it was being covered. When that all came out in the paper, SLC TV had not been approached. And I will make one comment to, and I have to, Mr. Perry. I think you didn't really mean it the way you said it, but it came across, but we have not done a poor job for 30 years. And you were quoted as such. So if somehow it can be worked out without any illegal maneuvering or anything like that, where we can still do our, and say we've also done hockey, basketball, but football is the main forte. The people just love it. Our ratings on Friday night at 10:30, roughly at one point when we did a survey, was 80% were turned to see their South Lyon football. And it's just it's a quirk. I doubt that, and I really say I doubt there's any small town in America that's done home and away for over 30 years like we have. And it just is a special niche that this town has. And so I'm all for modernization. I love the idea, but we can't afford it ourselves as much as we'd like to. Times are tough. You can't get sponsorship, and it's just 'cause, you know, the times are tough. And so that's why, like I say, it helps. In my case, I'm able to say that their programming, their ads or whatever, are seen in 33 communities. So that's helpful. That's been helpful to us. And there's been a heck of a lot of bartering done. And bartering is the American way in many ways. But a consistent, we've had a few consistent people the whole time doing it. And to start the other things, it's very grandiose. I like it. We tried it. We've already done it. Times are different. Kids can maybe do stuff more at home in their own computers and maybe come up with stuff. I don't know. I just, like I say, we've always welcomed programming to be brought to us. So with that, discussion's been good.
Well, I have another point to make then. This isn't an either-or situation. I think that all the things that you would still like to bring to the package would still be readily available to be broadcast. So that part of it, there would be no loss to you to be involved in putting programming onto the station. But there's two things. One of the things that wasn't mentioned about that contract, although it was written in '99, it states right in there that it's it's renewed annually, and that hasn't been renewed in years. So, and it was one of those if it isn't broke, don't fix it kind of a situation. One of the things that I've never been able to square is it's a city asset. This is the city's channel. So I'm concerned that we're in jeopardy of losing our franchise fees by not following the rules of how we attained our franchise fees. So, and we still have, I mean, it's what, 50, I think I was talking to Lori, and it's generating like $50,000 a year. So, we've allocated a great deal of that to other projects, but it is money that's available to operate this channel. And I don't see anywhere that we're going to need $50,000 to conduct a year's worth of cable cast. So But as I said, it doesn't mean, if this transition takes place, it doesn't mean that your involvement disappears. It's simply reorganized, that's all.
You gonna offer me a contract then or something?
Well, I mean, that would be entirely up to the commission to decide how things would operate, but
I really wanted to do my 300th football game this year. And it's a South Line East game. It's an in-house game. But
Seems
if
like
that
you
isn't
should be
going
able
to
to
be,
do
if that isn't going to be the case, then so be it.
why wouldn't it be the case?
Because again, I have the way I've been doing it, and the funny thing is we still use VHS because we can get it on the air right away. That's why we don't have time to go to the computers and it might be midnight or 1 in the morning before we could get them done and get them on the air and so forth. So, and editing is done by me as we go along. And we have this great system. Joe, you're the cameraman here. Tap, that means cut, without me having to say it. So we edit as we go along. We put together, and where these other cameras and so forth, it's a case of it just be everything. It'd be everything would be on there. You'd have 2.5-hour high school games versus the hour and 10 minutes we do now. And that's another feature that people really like is their quickness and get to the plays, cut the huddles out, that kind of thing. So
Well,
we
cameras
have our own little
on-off
system. We have our own little system. And I do have to pay people. I've paid a man for 29 years to be my cameraman. He's had 4 kids and never been to his own kids' high school games or band and stuff because he was devoted. He's originally from South Lyon, but he loves his old town and everything. So there's things that entail that behind the scenes that people don't have a clue. It isn't just go do the game. It's literally 5 to 6 hours. By the time you get started, you get set up and do and the whole thing that's devoted to it. And there's a lot of time, and Mr. Perry would agree, especially with his 3-minute video things. It takes a heck of a lot of time just to put a 3-minute thing together to get where you want, the footage you want and how you work it. There's a lot of time and effort it takes to put into programming. And you're asking to possibly make it a consistent and a lot of programming. That's a lot of work. And salute to those who can pull it off. So that's where we're at. I'm not against modernization. Again, I think we're such a small community, it hardly warrants. You've got over half the community doesn't even get the station. And so some of the monies that, who knows what it's going to cost. I did also do my own research because I hadn't seen anything come from you, Glenn. So I did get some, I'll pass this out to council right now. This is from the Swolok Studios, which is Southwest Oakland Cable Commission. It involves 3 communities, and it was just the beginning. It was just thrown together today. I asked our administrative assistant if she could get something for us, because at that point, Glenn, we didn't have anything.
I had stuff. I mean,
so I know we were going to have discussion tonight, and
Yeah.
so we needed to, again, we needed something. So anyway, that's just for your own fodder, and you can look at that at your own leisure. With that, do we have anything else? So go ahead.
Just a comment, if I may. I haven't heard anything tonight that jeopardizes football. And I think football is probably the main commodity of SLC TV, and I don't see why that can't continue, but I don't see why some of the other programming could be enhanced. The other thing I see is that we have a contract from 1999. We've been updating a lot of our contracts, both with our attorneys, with our, what are the guys, planners, and we RFP'd our engineering contracts here in the last few years. I don't see why this contract can't be looked into as well. And we now have a bunch of information that we didn't have an hour ago. I don't see why we shouldn't continue to look at this perhaps refine it, gather information, get some, I don't have any idea what costs would be, but it seems to me to make sense that we would at least continue to explore it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Joe?
Yeah, I'd like to say that definitely, I think this is something that can be explored. One thing I did notice, though, is that currently our system is set up where it does not cost the taxpayers anything, and we do provide an excellent service. As I'm seeing here, I'm seeing charges for, proposed charges for $2,220, and charges that would be up until as much as $20,000. I do not see any charges for airtime, but I imagine that could be done with some sort of sponsorship, but nevertheless, there is a possibility that this could cost the taxpayers dollars. So, with that in mind, I'm very, curious to see what the cost will be to our taxpayers, because as it is, the system does not cost taxpayers anything right now. Thank you.
Anybody else?
No, I'm going to reserve comment for the next discussion on this.
So I would like a clarification. What do you want on the next meeting? Do you want this as a discussion? Do you want some information distributed to the council? If so, can I get that by the Thursday prior to the meeting? Do you want it as an agenda item, I take it?
Yeah.
Is it going to be a discussion piece again, or is there going to be action, or what exactly am I putting down?
Probably further discussion
Okay.
based on, see some costs.
I'd like to see who wants to own it. Everybody wants to help and have volunteers, but who actually wants to take responsibility for it, put the money into it? I mean, I'd like to see a business plan of who is thinking about doing it.
If you look through these bylaws, you'll end up understanding a little bit more of the architecture of how the commissions operate, their responsibilities. They are essentially in charge. They're just like all of our commissions, they're a recommendation board to either city council or the city manager to operate, to determine how the city is going to operate its channel. So we already have a channel. To Joe's point, there are no air fees, you know, and we have, as I said, we have $50,000 a year in franchise fees that are generated exactly to support this type of activity. So there isn't a potential for a tax increase as a product of that. And those costs that are there are one-time commitments. So, you know, the camera that Ted is using now, you know, does operate off of tape and things, where this is a digital camera. So you're essentially using memory to plug into the system. The server that they had talked about is where all this information would be cached, and then you end up creating your programming from, you know, I mean, the South Lyon East football game of 2013 is the title of that bit. So you grab that, throw it into the time slot that you want it to be played back at. You know, I mean, a host of those, the interviews, the whole library is stored on that one-time device, and you create your content from that, or your programming from that.
So are you saying from outside of this one-time investment, there's no chance that there would be any cost to the taxpayers?
The only other cost is if you're going to pay people to produce things.
So we don't, at this time, we know that there will not be any other charges besides
No.
this one-time fee. Is that what you're saying?
Well, now Ted had alluded to the idea of getting on Comcast in Lyon Township and areas that are outside of the municipality of South Lyon. So if there are fees inherent to doing that, and there's a willingness by the commission to continue that broadcast, then there will end up being money that are outside of the scope of what that outlay is there. But that's a $50,000 annual regeneration of franchise fees. So there is capital to operate this system.
And Dave, where is that capital going right now?
To the general fund.
Which
Police,
helps on,
fire, administration, tax collection, all that good stuff.
but help keep taxes down as well. Mike, you had a question?
No, I'm just shaking my
I
head.
think you have your answer, David. More discussion.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, so I get everything in the packet that you need.
If you can quantify the money for me, I would appreciate that. 'Cause if you'd follow the money for me, I'd appreciate that.
And is there any way to get a